In this video, I'm walking through whether or not Shopify is a good platform for SEO. Spoiler alert, it is, but there are some limitations. First of all, the pros and the benefits of using Shopify as a platform and implementing SEO correctly. You have the ability to customize title, description, alt text, and the URL to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is if we go into my Shopify development platform here, we have a number of different places where you can update those specific elements. So first, if we go into a product, you can open up the product, and in here, you have the ability to, when you scroll down, update the search engine listing section here. And what you'll do is you'll click the pencil icon, and then you can update the title, and it tells you how many characters you've used of the 70 you should use as a maximum. And then also with the description, 0 of 320 characters used. And depending on the length of the character or the size of the character you're using, would depend on how many characters you can actually use that would show up in a Google search result. And then lastly, with this section here, you have the ability to update the URL handle. And you only have the ability to update after the /products for an individual product. And I'll show you some of the other cases here with collections and also with blog posts or blog content. Now, the other piece of information you can update here is within the images themselves. And this is something that you should optimize as well if you want your site to be set up to rank better. If you click on an image and you click edit alt text, you can update the alt text for this image, which is something Google looks at when determining what an image is about or what it is a picture of. And then in the content as well, you want to make sure the content for the product, and this would be within the product description section on the product page itself. You want to make sure that is optimized and set up correctly as well. Now with collections, very similarly, if you go into a collection, you can add an image for the collection, and you can also update the search engine listing for the collection itself. So again, you want to make sure the title is optimized correctly here, the description, and then the handle would be the name of the collection from the URL perspective. And you have the same thing here. You have the limitation. Would be yoursite.com/collections/ whatever the collection name is. And again, you want to make sure all of these elements are optimized correctly, but not over optimized. And then lastly, if you go to online store and blog posts, in here, you have the ability also to update those same elements. But you have the ability to add a featured image. You can set all of the SEO elements for the individual blog post as well, the title, description, and the URL handle. And by default, your blog will be yoursite.com/blogs/news, and then whatever the blog URL structure you set up for that individual blog post. Now, the other thing you can do is set an excerpt depending on how your blog is structured and laid out. So those are the elements you do have the ability to update and change and should all be optimized and set up correctly for you. Next things, from a benefit perspective that Shopify does well is you have the server set up and optimized. You don't need to do much with that in general. The asset delivery, like content delivery networks, are set up and structured correctly. In general, Shopify has a relatively efficient code base that you don't have to worry about customizing. You can plug and play, add in your content, your collections, your products, and you should be good to go and set up from a server and a technical perspective. But there are still some elements that can be improved from that perspective. The other benefit of Shopify is, in most cases, you have the ability to set up responsive themes. A responsive theme or a responsive design is a theme that shows up on desktop devices and phones or tablets and changes the way the elements are set up and structured on the site. You don't need to have a separate desktop version of the site and a separate mobile version of the site. This allows you to have one website that changes based on the viewing device somebody's using. Same thing here with mobile first indexing. Google prefers to have a mobile website, and a mobile version in that case would be a responsive site that changes into the mobile version of the site. And then touch-friendly interface, same thing, very similar with all of the growth of mobile versions and mobile devices. Now, there are some limitations to Shopify from an SEO perspective. One of the biggest and most common limitations that I see is the inability to customize the prefixes for products and collections. Now, this can potentially make URLs less ideal from an SEO perspective, but it lets Google know that a collection is basically a category or a structural page like that. So there is not a major issue from this perspective to have a rigid prefix for the URL structure. Some of the other issues, though, would be limited customization, where you can't fully customize the URL structure. And sometimes this could cause additional issues with canonicalization or duplicate content, which I'll mention here in a minute as well. There are some workarounds, though. You can use a redirect or an app and canonicals to make sure these elements are set up and structured correctly. In some cases, you can also use apps for some of these elements and some of the difficulties, but there are potential issues with using apps as well. For example, if you want to use an app to help with your structured data or your JSON LD integration, in most cases, unless you know how to code that and set that up individually, you would need to use an app for that, which could increase the complexity of the site a little bit and may increase cost if you have to pay for the app and or have somebody help set that up. Same thing with technical knowledge. Using apps, again, you have to either understand how to integrate these or how to set them up or have somebody manage them, because there are also updates oftentimes with these various apps and customizations as you're doing to your store. And then from a duplicate content issue, the biggest problems that I see from an SEO perspective regarding Shopify would be product variations, category pages, and filtered results. Now, for product variations, the impact here is potential SEO penalties. In general, this is not something that's very common, but it could happen. Same thing here with category pages. You have diluted search rankings, which I'll get to in a second, the importance of that and making sure that is set up and structured correctly. And then filtered results, crawl budget waste. I'll mention that in a second as well. Now, the solutions for these would be to set up canonicals correctly, to have a unique description for each category page, and then for filtered results to no index them so you're not wasting your crawl budget with Google. Now, here are a couple posts I made on X, and you can see here a crawl budget in SEO is basically the number of pages a search engine's crawler, like Googlebot, will crawl and index on your site within a given time frame. So you want to make sure your structure is correct to use your crawl budget best and improve your SEO results. There's actually cases where reducing the number of pages on your site can improve your rankings and improve your traffic, because Google doesn't have to waste crawl budget on pages that don't make sense. Secondly, if you use pagination for your Shopify collections, I would recommend setting any page 2+ to no index. And here's the code you can add for that. And the reason for this is if you have multiple pages for the same collection, you can run into duplicate content issues or keyword cannibalization by having the same page attempting to or actually indexed multiple times for the same keyword. In summary, Shopify is a great platform for SEO. I've audited hundreds of Shopify sites that rank well in organic search and generate significant revenue from their SEO efforts. With Shopify, you have the ability to customize the meta elements like I mentioned, the titles, descriptions, content, alt tags. You have the ability built in with the speed advantages of Shopify servers. You do have the mobile and responsive theme options. And then the biggest issues to make sure you address and understand and optimize correctly would be any of the URL limitations, to make sure any of those elements are set up and structured correctly as well. So if you're looking for help with your Shopify SEO, head over to lattseo.com/contact, fill out the form there, and I'll quickly give an audit to you to determine how I can best help you and figure out the best way to help your Shopify site grow. And that's it. Hope this was helpful, gave some value about whether or not Shopify is a good platform for you from an SEO perspective, and I'll see you in the next one.